It is time for Real News with Brian Ross. Brian joins us on a Thursday morning, and we're always glad to have him stop by. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning to you. That was quite a storm last night.
Yeah, we're going to get those, as Pat Pagano says, this is going to be tropical weather. That means you're going to get downstores. You're not. You're going to get down. So, and it all depends really on the path of all these different storms. So, but what we try to tell people is that with the climate change that has been in progress, just remember this: most weather events now go to extremes rather than follow the norms, and that's the best you can tell people. Just be prepared for whatever's going to come.
Well, a storm in Washington for sure over the president's handling of what happened in Afghanistan.
Well, I was just going to say that be prepared. I mean, one thing I'm a little disappointed in. Now, I think that, yes, you take a look at our history in Afghanistan, it's filled with mistakes from Republican presidents, Democratic presidents, doesn't matter. It's filled with mistakes. And that all led up to really my question, my statement always is, what did we think was going to happen eventually in Afghanistan, a country that's been unrulable by anybody really for centuries? But I think the mistake that Joe Biden made was not coming out strong and saying, listen, we're making the right decision. I just think he has to come clean and say, you know what, we were totally unprepared. Our intelligence was totally wrong. The president of that country left. These are all should have. That's what I don't understand. Just come clean and say the information that was provided to us on the ground was very poor. And yes, we made many mistakes.
Well, yeah, he sort of said that in his interview with George Stephanopoulos, and then he sort of became defiant and said, those images you're talking about that happened 4 or 5 days ago, they were not. It was a couple of days earlier. And he also had predicted, a month ago, there'll be no chaos. Nothing's going to happen. We know we own this. We have 300,000 Afghan troops against 75,000 Taliban. I don't predict any problems at all. And he was just dead wrong about that. And whether he knew that at the time or not, I don't know. But clearly the intelligence misled him, if that's what he thought.
Yeah, it's that situation. I mean, you look at it right now. I give just an amazing amount of credit to the U.S. troops, the 6,000 that are now securing that airport, because not only do they have to worry about the Taliban, they have to worry about just regular Afghans that want to storm that airport and get out. And these are all, I'll say, 19 to 25, 30-year-old young guys and women. And the airport, the bravery of the pilots loading up these planes far above capacity. I just, you marvel at their professionalism, the actual forces on the ground.
Nobody can complain about the troops or their valor or their ability to carry out what's going on now, is what's a staged withdrawal. The questions really were, why wasn't the evacuation or the removal of our key allies there begun sooner and with more stress? Biden seemed to suggest that, they didn't want it. The president of the country didn't want them to do that because it would look like they were going to fall apart. And, of course, he's correct to say that, when the president flees the country himself with a ton of cash, that's not a good symbol.
Well, that's the whole thing. I was watching Bill Maher the other night before all this broke, and one of the Democratic advisors who used to work for CNN, I love her. She actually leaked some information to the Hillary Clinton group during the debates. She made a very pointed statement, and this was before any of this developed. She said, "Here's what's going to happen: the president of that country is going to go to some country with Stan at the end of it." She goes, "He's not going to be around." And she was dead right.
Right.
She was dead
right. In terms of, we always think the captain should go down with the ship. This captain fled the ship, and so did the entire army. It seems that there was really no battle for Kabul. It was just the army shrunk away into the night, took off their uniforms, and went home, leaving behind equipment and all sorts of things that are now in the hands of the Taliban. And of course, we know on September 11th, the 20th anniversary of those attacks, which were launched and planned out of Afghanistan, the U.S. Embassy will have a flag over it that is the Taliban.
What's interesting about this whole mess is if people go back to the original fight with Iraq to kick them out of a neighboring country, people forget when the commander of our troops, Schwarzkopf, when they wanted him to go and march on Baghdad, and what he said was, our operation was not ever to change governments or occupy. It was to take one country and, with a multinational force, get them out of another country they invaded. We've done that. We're going home. That didn't happen in Afghanistan. We went in there to get al-Qaeda and also Osama bin Laden. We succeeded in those things. It took a while. After that happened, once again, for some reason, this country decided to go into, well, let's build another free country. It just doesn't happen.
And those were decisions made by George W. Bush and Barack Obama.
That's exactly
and,
right.
Donald Trump.
It didn't matter, and Senates and Congress. It didn't matter whether you were Democrat or Republican. And the really sad thing about this whole thing for Joe Biden, he is one of the few people who wanted to get out of Afghanistan during the Obama presidency.
Right. I think that, and you're right. I mean, both sides, both parties, continued the sort of the false assumption that we had the power and the willpower to change that country. We may have had the power, we didn't have the willpower to be there for 50 or 100 years. We weren't that welcome, and nobody would make the tough call that Biden did make to finally get out. I mean, Trump tried to do it, didn't get it done, and Biden did do it, but he is paying a political price for that, no doubt.
I just don't, we've got to get out of that mindset that we can import democracy into other countries. Especially, look at the history of Afghanistan. No one's been able.
No, you're right, and it goes to the limits of our power and sort of the arrogance of our use of power. There are some things we just can't do.
Yeah, and we sooner or later we will learn that. But I'm so proud of the military people about what they're doing and how they're doing it, putting their lives in harm's way, not only to bring home Americans, but to bring on Afghans who put their lives in harm's way by working with Americans.
And the final chapter has not yet been written there about how we finally get out. To date, no American has been killed. No American has died there trying to get out or been attacked by the Taliban. We'll see what happens. It's being closely watched. Surprisingly, the Taliban continues to allow news coverage to reach the world. Sharia law is not going to be the rule there. That's what they have said.
It's good. This is going to be something to watch, and you're right. We'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks as more and more we try to get people out. Let's switch away from that, which is a main story. Of course, there's no doubt about it, and we have to come back to this country where once again we just have this conflict amongst ourselves about COVID-19, the different variants, and now we find that the Texas governor, of course, once again, these governors that are trying to get a hold of Trump supporters, they're following the Trump line. Abbott gets COVID-19. He's a governor. He gets the best treatment in the world. He's going to be fine. But just like the president, what happened to the president? This is just a situation that spells really bad things for the future in this country, not over just COVID-19, but about anything.
It continues to amaze me that someone like that would be preaching the way he has, and then of course he gets it supposedly asymptomatic, but invokes all sorts of treatment. It would be hard, I think, for most of us to get. You may or may not be able to get it. It's available, but he certainly was concerned enough about what was happening. And, now that they're going to have boosters beginning 8 months after your last shot for most Americans, you know what? I'm going to line up and get mine, and if nobody else wants to have it, fine. Put me ahead of the list.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If this comes out, I will get my booster shot. And like I said, I know plenty of my friends that don't get flu shots. They don't believe in getting shots. With those people, I know them. They're also the type of people that they'll wear the masks if they're told to wear. So I don't really have a problem with that. But I do have a problem with continuing politicization of this. I mean, you have governors that are using this as a political football, and people are following and trying to believe that, and then you get these massive outbreaks, and once again, common sense doesn't seem to rule the day. I mean, this is. I'm going to say this, and people are going to be upset, but this is all what has happened by having someone like Donald Trump in the White House for 4 years, who was not really a Republican or a Democrat. He was a Donald Trump, and now the country is really divided into many different camps.
Right, but I think even if Trump had not been president, we still have a core group of Americans who are skeptical about science, who are afraid of shots, frankly. And, of course, the vaccine so far is still approved only for so-called emergency use, even though 300 million doses have been given. So once the FDA gives the final approval, and I don't understand what the delay is, frankly, but once they do that, that argument is out the window, and then we'll see what happens. The vaccination rate has shot up, but there are just those who are hesitant, they are resistant, they're actually defiant.
I want to switch back to your thoughts on our international relations. I mean, Joe Biden's presidency, this is a big, big test for it. It's also going to be a big, big test for him once again to contact all our allies and explain to them, even if they don't want to explain it publicly, explain to our allies what led up to what happened. So once again, our allies can have regained confidence in us.
Yeah, I think that our real, true allies will understand that nothing was being gained by staying there. As Mr. Biden said, another year, 5 years, 10 years wasn't going to change it. And it's more in the operational way in which the withdrawal took place and the planning for that, and to the extent that we botched that by waiting to the last minute to get people out and leaving sort of in the middle of the night, and the panic that ensued. And was there no way to protect the president of that country so that he would stay and try to run the country? There are patches now of resistance showing up against the Taliban, but not much.
Yeah. And one final story. These people seem to be destined to horrors, and that's the folks who live in Haiti. You look at the past 20, 25 years, you can go back even further, but the past 20, 25 years, this is almost like a devil-struck country. It's unbelievable the horrors that they have to go through.
Right. They have a natural problem there. The climate and the topography. It is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, and nothing gets better, and efforts by everyone to try to make it better have failed. The president was recently assassinated. They've had the earthquake, now the horrendous storms, nothing good happening there. It's a very, very tough situation.
All right, and I guess the only way we're going to fight back as a world and try to keep control of the Taliban will probably be through financial funds, the International Monetary Fund, and I think that's all that the world can do now to try to help out the people that remain in Afghanistan and see if we can, especially the women and the children. I think that's the only route that's left for the rest of the world.
Right. There are not going to be free elections there. We can count on that. The people would flee Afghanistan would choose instead to go to Iran. Tells you how bad it is in Afghanistan.
Brian, always great to talk to you, and hopefully we'll have better topics to talk about next week.
I hope so, Marshall. It's been pretty grim, that's for sure. Gut-wrenching, frankly.
All right. Well, we'll speak to you next week, Brian. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Marshall.
Brian Ross and Real News here on Robin Hood Radio. You can always find Brian at robinhoodradio.com. Click on demand. Click on Real News with Brian Ross.